Welcome back, everyone. I'm Zell, and today on the table we have something that is very interesting and it apparently is going to play heck with my lights. We'll do the best we can with that. But it is the North Arm Skaha 2. This comes from one of the viewers out there that was kind enough to send this around and let myself and Brian and Staza23 all get a look at it. And I have not watched any reviews on this knife because once putting it in my hands, I really wanted to give you my honest, uncluttered opinion because I have a feeling it's going to be different than everybody else's. But let's go, to start with, let's talk about the knife. And what we have is, this particular one is JG10. They've got several colors, and it's all contoured in the mill and done well. I mean, really well. We got some very generic looking standoffs back there. We've got stainless screws, and I haven't really tried these. Let's see if they're a T8. Looks like they are. We'll get the driver out here and run the weehaw around so you can see that. Reasonable. They are deep, which, you know, we've talked about that before. Sometimes deep is just as good as being tight. If you can get tight and deep, well, that's all aces, friends. But doesn't always happen. Our pivot, a little looser. That's a T8. I don't know if I have a T9 up here. That is a T9. Let's see if the T9 fits. Yeah, that is a T9, it looks like. So that's a bit of a mishap there. I would have preferred, especially T8 to T9. If you're going to move all the way to T10, that's one thing. But if you're staying that close, just get the right screw with the T8. It's not that hard. Anyhow, very well contoured. Got some kind of generic. We got stainless hardware. We do have a very nice pocket clip that we'll look at here in a bit. Very much like any stainless Spyderco bent wire pocket clip. Attached very much the same way. So we got a lanyard hole down here. We got an overall length of 4.41 inches, a handle length of a rather chubby 0.62, and I think it's actually thicker than that. I measured that up in here. So measuring back here, it's going to be just a smidge thicker. I believe I had almost 3/4 of an inch somewhere back in here, which is, you know, it's kind of thick, but it doesn't seem that way in the pocket, so it's not that big a deal. We have a spine-to-spine height of 1.2 inches. That's pretty decent there. And we'll get to the blade here in just a second. For all you guys that think that we have to get the blade right away, this is not knife porn. It's knife information. So we'll get to the blade when we get there. Got to carry it. Be able to carry the thing before you can cut anything with it. So can you carry this guy? Absolutely. And that JG10... man, that's just some pretty stuff, and it seems to be pretty good about not getting dirty. And how well you guys can see, this is a pretty hard G10. We'll get more into that later, but I think a reasonable choice, and maybe, well, we'll get into it later. So now, let's get in. Let's get that guy opened up, and there's our blade. We'll talk about it here in a minute. But it is 3.3 inches long with an edge length of 3.1. It's got a very good edge termination down here. And just overall very nice. Let's do some size comparison. We've got our standards out here. There's a Buck 110, a Rat Model 1. A little bit smaller than both of those. Weighs a bunch less, because that's one of the things about this knife. This knife weighs 3 ounces, just over 3 ounces. And we have, there's our Delica stand-in. It's a Spyderco Mantra, but approximately the same size as a Delica. And that's about what we're getting here out of the Skaha. Now, this Mantra, I don't remember exactly what it weighs, but it's very close to the same weight as this, somewhere around 3 ounces, as is your Delica's like 2.65 or something. So, you know, there you go. Now let's get a look at the blade more specifically. And what we have here is a piece of S35VN. Fully milled. This is not a ground blade. You can see the striations from the mill down the blade. And what those are little bitty tiny steps. And I say it's not been ground. They have polished this to some extent, but you can still feel all those steps up the blade on both sides. It's well done, don't get me wrong. They did a good job, but they are there. Let me see if I can get something to wipe that blade off real quick. There we go. You can see they've done a heck of a job as far as getting it to look good, but there are striations all the way down it. Up here we have made in BC right there. That's made in British Columbia. So this is a Canadian knife for all of our Canadian friends. It says North Arms on this side and it's 35 VN right there. So very normal drop point, nothing super special there. It's just a standard drop point. And what were we on stock thickness? We're about 0.1. I measured actually a little under 0.1. I put it in there as 0.1 because I think that's probably where they started. Got some jimping across the back. No terribly sharp edges on this knife. They've done a pretty good job of keeping everything beveled, softened, rounded, whatever you want to call it. And that's always a good thing. We do have a long grip length here of 3.75 inches. And guys, I think we're going to go to our pause and read card, and then I'll be right back with you. All right, so mechanically, what do we got? Well, we got ball bearings, we got backing washers, and we got a liner lock. There is your lockup, good and secure, probably around 50-60%, which is really a good place to see it. I did not measure this because I don't have a set of calipers that can actually get in there and get me an appropriate measurement. So I'm guessing we're somewhere between 40 and 60 thousandths on this. It's kind of hard to tell the way they've got it beveled and such. Now, here's the deal. That is kind of an inset liner lock. The entire frame of this knife is G10. You got your pivot assembly here, and then right here, and let's see if we can get you kind of a picture of it there. That lock bar goes down through there, has a couple of cuts that hold it in place, and then it is held together with this screw for your pocket clip. You know, okay, it works. Seems to work really, really well, and gives the knife a really snappy and fall shutty action without any issues. Ergonomically, you know, whenever you go with super simple handle designs, you can't goof it up too badly. And this pocket clip stays out of the way. The knife feels good in the hand. I like the jimping. It may be a bit aggressive for some of you, but it's not sharp per se. It's just a bit aggressive, but I happen to like that. You can get it around however you need to, and you're going to be fine with the knife. They have done a great job there. And let's get it in the pocket and see what that looks like. There's our Levi's. You know, and there you go. We got lanyard hole just barely peeking out. Just a little bit of the knife peeking out, and the knife's long enough, and the clip's long enough. Not going to give you that weird floating around if you got some slightly loose pants on. Very nicely done there. I do like what they've done with the pocket clip. I wish that more of these companies that are, building the working man's knife, that's what we're going to say, would adopt this style of clip, because it just works so good and does such a good job of not getting things scratched up if you get it against a vehicle or stuff where you're walking through tight places, and it does a good job of not getting caught on things too. So that's why I wish they would, more of the working man's knife would start to use these. And now, guys, I think we praised the Skaha enough. because this is the Skaha 2. What's the great praise on it? The great praise is a very good action. Very appropriate for the normal everyday carry blade, with a standard drop point about 0.1 thick. That's 2.5 millimeters or so. And just a great action. Now, here comes the other part. This thing is $186 and change. It is technically a production knife. From what I understand, these are made nearly entirely in the mill, so like a Grimsmo knife. And I know many of you pay a lot of money for a Grimsmo. I'm not going to, but many of you will. And I have a hard time with price. Guys, I always tell you that once you get to certain levels, that it becomes what you want, and that is exactly what we've got here. I'm just going to air my thoughts on it. What we have in front of us is a $190 knife that is nearly 100% G10 as far as the handle well, it is. The only thing that's not G10 is your pocket clip and your lock bar. We've got very boring standoffs. Everything is dependent. The entire knife is dependent on the G10. Now, I've got a lot of dealings with this approximate durometer at G10. It's very hard stuff, and it lasts a long time, and they have been smart in the way that they have machined the G10. It is probably going to last for a very long time. They haven't left any places where it's likely to chip and break, which is great foresight on their part. But what I'm left with is a knife that feels like I should have spent $50 on it. And I don't know how to express that through the camera to you, because whenever you look at the price tag and you look at the quality and you look at how great the action is, everything screams that the price tag is valid. And then I put my hands around the knife and I use the knife, and I just can't see the price. We have what I'm going to call an uninspired design. There are, I don't know, a couple hundred knife models out there that you can get that look almost exactly the same. I'm going to call this here, this is something that I don't care for, and I'm not saying I won't do it sometime in the future on some knife model for some aesthetic reason, but for a knife meant to carry and use every day, this idea that you can run it through the mill and leave those steps in the blade after you get it out of the mill, there is no way that that is good for cutting performance. Now, don't take that all sideways. This thing will cut if I can find something to cut up here. I mean, it's going to cut just fine. However, you can feel those ridges in the blade, and it's just not a necessary thing. You know, you could have taken this knife a couple of swipes with a high grit paper on the grinder or high grit belt on the grinder, and all those ridges are gone. And then you got a nice smooth blade, and you know, I don't know. I know I'm the outlier here, so many people love this thing, and they've got good reason to. I mean, the action, the way they've got the geometries all done are just beautiful, but it leaves me flat. It leaves me wanting something more out of what they've got, and I applaud what North Arms is doing, and I want to see more of this. I want to see more from them. I want to see some inspired design. I want to see something with some character in it. I want to see those little touches, like if we're going to have a $200 knife, we could spend an extra nickel on some nice standoffs. or machine some nice standoffs. We're only talking a smidge more time in the mill, guys. We could do some things like, if we're really trying to build the lightest knife in the world, which they've done a good job of here, we're at just over 3 ounces for an actual frame, or not frame lock, but inset liner lock folder. Why are we using stainless screws? You know, titanium screws cost a little bit, but whenever you're spending nearly $200 on this knife, it would just be nice to see those little touches to bring this knife closer to the asking price, I think, is the thing. The design could be better inspired. It's not a bad design by any means. It's just a common design. The hardware, they could have done better on. I know a lot of you like these lines, but for me, a little touch with some high grit belts and make that nice and smooth and make it a better cutting knife. That's what I would have done. Now, back to a couple things they've done really well. That edge termination, guys, somebody was listening and somebody got that right. The other fear I have with this knife is the hardened G10 for both sides. G10 on one side of a knife generally doesn't bother me whatsoever. I do, even with the Spydercos that do this, your paramilitary 2s and other things, this hard G10, and the Spyderco uses a different type of G10, but this hard G10 like this, I have a lot of experience with that stuff cracking. So if you are going to own one of these, take it apart, do the maintenance on it, which I am not going to take this apart. Be aware of those things. Don't over tighten the screws. Be sure everything is set in the way it's supposed to be. Don't over tighten stuff. And the knife should last you a good long time, because they have been thought well about how they did everything and kept you out of those places where you have the chance to crack that G10. So, I don't know. That's my opinion of the North Arms Skaha. It is a great first and second attempt at folding knives by North Arms. Whenever they come around with another model, I'd like to see some more inspired design. Wow me. It doesn't take a lot to wow me whenever it comes to this stuff. You know, get us a little bit of flash here, a little bit of something nice back here, some titanium hardware. Do some of the small things that could really bring this knife up. And don't goof up what you've already fixed from the Skaha 1. That's the hardest part. Anyhow, guys, this has been the North Arms Skaha 2. Does it live up to the hype? Well, guys, that's kind of up to you. For me, no. I won't be ordering a Skaha. Not this model, anyhow. However, looking at how these guys are doing this stuff, if they come out with an inspired design and something that touches me, you bet I'll be looking for a Skaha. Why? Because they're doing it right, they're getting the tolerances, and they're doing things that a lot of companies skip over. And that's the most important part. Once you go from there, you have to get into design and how it's inspired and all the little things. And it's all those little things that they could move up on a little bit and really make the line of knives from North Arms awesome. It's already very good. And if you're in line for a Skaha, don't get out of line. You're going to love it. Now, you've already listened to Shabazz and others talk about it, and what they say is mostly not wrong. Now, I have heard people saying that the striations on the blade don't cause problems with cutting. That's an absolute falsity. Anytime that you put striations on a blade like that, steps essentially, it is going to affect your cutting performance. It's just physics, guys. But anyhow, I'm going to leave it there. You guys have a wonderful day. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And hit that little bell button so you don't miss any videos we put out here on the Zelrick YouTube channel. And I will see you next time.